G'day, Geoff Lewis here from Seriously Series, and today another workshop update video, but I'm in a different part of Australia. What I thought I'd show to you is my Series 1 collection that I've got, and obviously I do share this collection with another good friend of mine too. So I was just going to tell you about sort of how I picked up these vehicles, what's planned for them, and what I've been working on really. So if this sounds like a video that's of interest to you, then you know what to do. Stay tuned. This here is my 1952 Land Rover Series 1 80-inch, and many of you are probably going, ooh. But I bought this at a time where Series 1s weren't cool. That's right, they were a bit dorky. But I picked this up off a farm a little bit further down the valley, off a farmer who'd had it for 45 years. And he was the second owner. It was originally owned by a garage in Hobart, and it was used as a roadside assist vehicle and a tow vehicle. And really, obviously it's the bare bones of it here, but essentially it really hadn't done many miles at all. I've pulled the motor apart and it's still got the standard piston rings and it's still got the standard bearings in it, and the bores look fine. It really hasn't done many miles at all. The one thing that is absolutely flogged out on it are the actual brake drums. I've never seen them worn as badly as on this vehicle. They're actually cracked right through the casting of the brake drums themselves. And that's probably because it's been used as a cattle catching vehicle over the years. It spent 20 years sitting out in a field, and the seats got eaten by the cows, but the paintwork itself, it's had a respray sometime in its life, but that's been kept in pretty good nick because the cows have slowly rubbed up against it over the years. So I bought it about probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I started sort of stripping it apart and getting it ready to be restored before I did the big trip with Damon over to Kalgoorlie. So now, obviously being on the other side of the country here in Tasmania, I try and do a little bit of work on it each time I come back to see friends and family. So I've just been putting some new universal joints in it, in the prop shafts at the moment, and yeah, just slowly tackling it bit by bit. So anyway, it's in pretty good nick for its age. There's a little bit of rust in the firewall, which is to be expected, but the chassis is in good nick. And hopefully over the coming years it'll all become one again and get it back on the road. This is the other one. I partly own this with a friend of mine. We went halves in it, and many of you will probably be quite surprised at this. It is a 107 inch, and I believe it's 56 or 57, and some of you might say that's a 109, but we believe it to be a 107 inch station wagon. And I believe that only a bit over 1,000 of these were actually produced. They weren't produced by Land Rover, they were produced by a coach building establishment, I believe in Birmingham. 20 of them were kept in the UK, I believe, and the rest were exported. And they weren't a cheap car. They were sort of the Range Rover of their day, really. And this one is very unique because we believe it was purchased by the Hydroelectric Commission here in Tasmania, and they built a number of vast dams or hydroelectric schemes around Tasmania. And this one, once again, was actually owned by the same gentleman who owned the 80-inch, came from the same farm, and basically all he did was drive from his farm a couple miles up the road to the sawmill each day, and that was it. So once again, really hasn't done many miles at all. The valve guide seals need to be replaced on it, but other than that it runs. this is something that we're sort of holding off on because we really want to go over it with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that it's restored right and it's not, you know, done wrong or in bad taste. But yeah, very, very fortunate. And when we picked it up at the time, we just didn't know how rare these vehicles actually are. And they are by far the most ugliest Land Rover that they ever made. But it's just really interesting. It's all been pop riveted together, or blind riveted together pretty much, with a few spot welds here and there. You've still got the 2-litre engine in it. It's still got the original transmission, front and rear differentials, so it really hasn't been altered in any way. Even the wiring itself, people haven't, you know, tried to put a cassette player in or anything like that. So that's what makes this vehicle so amazing, really. But sadly, we bought it off a gentleman. It came from the farm, which the 80-inch came from. But sadly, a gentleman purchased this, and then he started trying to pull it apart, and he actually went about it the wrong way and actually drilled out all the spot welds on the rear tub. So that's going to make it a bit interesting putting it back together, but we'll get there in the end. So anyway, watch this space and we'll finally get to this. The great thing about Land Rovers is you can leave them in the shed and they won't go anywhere. So it's not going anywhere, it's undercover, so we'll get to it eventually. But anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, as always, click on that subscribe button down below. It does make a big difference. And if you're enjoying the content here, check us out on Patreon. And if that's not your cup of tea, you can support us via PayPal by clicking on the web link in the content section down below to our website. Anyway, hope to see you in our next video.